What do you have to leave again for?
If I have to, I'm gonna go insane.
Why?
Whenever you're ready.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Spinner Rack. I'm here with Petey, and today we're going to be discussing a review of The Old Guard, Force Multiply. This is book 2 of the review we previously did about Old Guard. And of course, as you all know, this is the second book to the successful TV series, the TV movie on Netflix, helmed by Charlize Theron. So we figured since it's so popular, let's do another one, Old Guard, book 2, Force Multiply. Of course, this is the Greg Rucka book. Leonardo Fernandez is the artist, and Miwa, of course, the talented Miwa, is back again with her coloring. Petey, can you please give us an intro a bit about this story here?
Well, this is, well, you already said, I thought you didn't say it, but you did say the name Force Multiply. So ultimately, this one starts with another flashback. And if you watch the movie, you get a hint to what this story was going to be. So if you're coming from the movie and reading the comic book, and you notice there's some subtle changes in the first series to this one, in this one, it's almost like you get on the ground running when you pick up this series right after the movie. It's one of the few times where, outside of the one big change that happened in the movie, you can pick this up and be like, I'm reading this. Ultimately, there's one thing that doesn't happen with the lead that you can't, that's not going to happen with Andy. That's not going to happen. But otherwise, you see Andy way in the past, so far in the past. It's like 6,700 years in the past, where it's like these I guess primitive people are at these wars and just saying they've been warring for all this time. And after this point, you see them doing some cool stuff. You know, they're out after that. They're going out. They're helping with this trafficking stuff, and all the stuff is going on. But then the character that we saw that was in the other series, in the TV show, that was hinted, this relationship, she shows up and she captures Booker, who was the one that was left. So since that happened, we ultimately, it connects to catching the old guard and catching them off guard, and them going through some struggles with her. So she has a gripe to bear, and it's almost similar to, it's a little different, because they just sort of played it, once you go into the water, it would be, you know, and this is going to have spoilers, basically the same fate as the movie. Her friend gets it's actually storm. It's like a perfect storm, and she's thrown off. And now she wants vengeance. This character wants vengeance. So ultimately, this thing, ultimately, instead of getting to the entire thing, it's just a lot of action. It's really quick. I've talked about a lot of Image books and saying how, I kind of wish there was more captions, but if for just a romp and with the no captions, it just moves quickly. It's just a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it. So, what are your thoughts so far before we get into more of the story?
I definitely agree with you there. I think it's a definitely quick read. It's very easy. Of course, I love the coloring by Miwa, Daniela Miwa, and Fernandez's art is very sharp. I think they definitely complement the story hugely. The main character, the character that we were hinted at in the last book, was Noriko, but I think the Old Guard. Yes, there is an ensemble cast and everybody, but it really deals with our girl.
Andy.
Andy, and it's one thing we got to understand is that yes, you can't die, but you can feel the pain. And when we talk about pain, there's physical pain, there's emotional pain, and this is something they all carry along with them over the years. And it comes a time where you just can't do it anymore. And I think this is where we have the dilemma for Andy as time goes on. And it's extremely powerful, and it's also heartfelt, because you're like, oh my gosh, how much can happen. And these characters are basically warriors who've been continuing to be warriors for hundreds and if not thousands of years with Andy, where they've developed serious PTSD, and how they deal with it differently. Some characters, you have two of the characters, the guys who have developed a very strong and powerful relationship, and you have someone as young as Niall Freeman, who is the newest character, who's there. She's only literally
Yeah.
27 years
Yeah,
old.
no.
And so she hasn't developed all the scar tissue that has to be because of this whole situation. And you have, of course, Booker, he wanted to get out. That was the whole thing in the last series, in the movie and in the book. He just wanted to get out. He was just tired of living. He wanted just something different, something to change. He didn't necessarily want to be against his peeps, but he wanted just to change things up. And of course, because of that, he was banished. And this is where Noriko was able to come in
Mm-hmm.
and find him. But I think the thing here we have to understand: Noriko knows Andy so well because they had a relationship for, I think, hundreds, if not thousands of years. They're like two of the oldest. It goes back so far for them. And so before there was anyone else, Andy was by herself for a very long time. And that's where we feel the loneliness. Even though she has this group, she still is lonely to a degree because, who can understand where she came from and going forward? And but there's a couple of things that are surprising. You have Copley coming back. Copley, right? James
Yep.
Copley,
Yeah.
coming back, and it's very interesting. You see how he played his character. We get hints of that in the movie also, of what he's going to turn. So they foreshadowed a lot in the movie. They changed things up, but many of those changes were foreshadowed. And Greg Rucker, I think, was the screenwriter, and you had the director, what's his name, Prince Bythewood, I believe her name is.
Gina Prince.
Gina Bythewood, and they did an excellent job of being able to tell the story. And by the way, Gina Prince Bythewood is the first African American woman who has directed a superhero film. I mean, people don't understand how big this is. A big deal because right now, prior to Patty Jenkins there was no other woman doing these type of things, and Patty Jenkins helped to open the door on. So it's pretty interesting. In one point, Hollywood wasn't even allowing them to come in, any woman to do movies, action movies like this, and now you have the doors finally opened up, and they're doing good jobs. But that's one of the reasons. Like I said, we're looking at this new book. It came out, 2019, I believe it was, or started 2020.
Yeah.
And of course, it's because of the Netflix film and the success that it's had. If you go look at Amazon or their list, or if you look at Apple, I mean, the Old Guard books are in the top rankings.
Well, I think ultimately it's hand in hand because Image doesn't necessarily put books out. They put books out for Hollywood to look at and say this would work as a good property. And then that's ultimately what happens. Like they're selling to Hollywood, and it's a hand in hand thing because, like, even though I think you pointed out that the series is a lot like Highlander, right?
I didn't want to say that again.
Why not? This is the part because I was saying I like the flashbacks and I like seeing the past, but I'm not a big. I don't know the Highlander that much. I know my father was a big fan of it, and the fact of hearing that, ultimately in my mind, you could always say, let's just do another Highlander. Where in Hollywood they're like, do that again, but don't make it be Highlander. Whatever it is, don't make it be Highlander. And then the Highlander fans look at it and say, that's Highlander. And the people say, oh, this is new and cool. And they're like, no, it's still Highlander. When they add the flashbacks into the movie, a whole lot of them, it'll really be Highlander. So in this, I think sorry I cut into what you were saying, because I feel that Image is kind of going to Hollywood, so it's not sort of like a thing where they are just hoping Hollywood come along and bless them. Hollywood is looking at their stuff for properties they can turn into films, and how simple and how simple they can translate the stuff to films, and it's working. Walking Dead, you have that. There's other things that are successful that we haven't seen turned to films yet. I'm going through it again. There's what is it? A History of Violence, Atomic Blonde, Two Guns, Warrior Nuns, and that sort of thing. So these comic books, and like Warrior Nuns, more of them kind of change. The other ones, they just sort of change the actors, but keep sort of the plots. But I would also like to say, can we announce that this review was from Image themselves? They sent off previews, and we were graced with the ability to review this one, thankfully, to Image Comics. Mm-hmm. Right? We get the advance from Andy Fitzgerald. So this is there's some other great books from that month, but this one this was something that we've been wanting to review also, and it's coming out in a nice trade form. But I do have my one issue, which I said, regretfully, I spoke for Mars and said the back of his head talking about the Highlander. In my mind, this series is this point of Noriko, her storyline is very similar to a character in the next Men. So it's one of these characters, they go through something that's a traumatic thing that they have to go through for centuries. And if you know them, only one of them could have gone through it. And it leads her to go, basically insane. And then she wants to take it out on her friends. And she doesn't know that her friends really had nothing to do with it, but she's still having this pain. But if the difference is being, since it's a time travel story, the character befriends herself while she's tearing apart her friends. So it's just similar in that when someone wants to exact revenge, the only difference is that what's the name is amassed the whole criminal empire to take them on. She has a cool boat and stuff like that. And was it Alejandro? His art, even though it's similar, it's a lot clearer. Because it's like, I think he was going for it early on where you see the covers, where you just see the tech, but you don't see their heads. And you have to figure out which character it is as you go along. Now he still has that. He brings up the covers a little higher so you can see, and you see the two leads at one point, but then the rest of the characters, you see their bodies. I think it's been a lot cleaner. I don't think the art has changed that much, but it's a lot cleaner, and you just zip through this thing like and not that you feel like you're reading something that doesn't have story, but this is ultimately what you want, where the writer is allowing the art to shine and it moves very quickly. So, ultimately, that's not a negative. In books that you don't understand that, I say put captions, I say slow it down, I say let the people look at this stuff. And this one, you don't have to do it because you can understand the art. You can almost page through it and say, oh, this is entertaining. So it's a plus for me. If you like the first series, you should really like the second one.
I agree with you 100%. I rarely read comics or trade paperbacks twice. I literally read this 2.5 times. Out of all of this stuff, there's probably like one portion that I was was not clear enough for me. And so I went back 2 other times, 3 times, I guess, just to clarify. But the second time I went over the comic, I was like, wow, just as good as the first one, the first read. And I was like, this is impressive because I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed that, you're not as complicated with as many, they're not inundating you with words everywhere, trying to explain everything. The visuals alone, Fernandez's visual helps to explain a lot of the story, and the colors just reinforce that. And again, I always have to give a shout out to Daniela Miwa, because the way those colors are expressed, the pastels, I hope I'm calling it the correct way, it does just a great job. But this story comes down to, loneliness, you know what I'm saying? Where, you have a loneliness, love, relationships, groups, friends, and what triumphs after that. And also, these people are dealing with extreme trauma and how they deal with it over time. They're soldiers. Andy's been a soldier for 6,700 years, 7,000 years. And, and she's been a leader. And so how long did it take before a leader actually has to deal with some of the issues she has to deal with? And Rico was able to come in there and play on that right away. And so it's a very interesting setup of what's going to happen in the next book that's coming out.
Called The Old Guard Fade Away. I don't like that it ended on the breakup of the team and the Rico kind of adding this one sort of moral play on them. And then it's sort of making Andy kind of push the rest of the team away, which pushes her closer back to Noriko. I was like, I get the crisis of faith, but at the same time with the Noriko thing, but I don't know if it should have happened like that. But let's see where it goes in the next miniseries.
Yeah. I see your point. I'm not going to argue it, but I think it was a necessary.
It sounds like you want to argue it.
Whereas Noriko, her death, her many deaths, because Noriko was drowned for hundreds of years basically before she was able to finally get free. It made her made her crazy, but it made her focus on what she wanted to do, and she captured what needed to be done. Whereas our main character of Andy has been like kind of like just going along, you know, for many years. And so it just showed you that, you know, she's like a walking wounded. She's been around so long. She needs rest. She needs recuperation. She needs someone to control. She can't always be the boss. And I think Noriko just understood that better than anyone else because they had a relationship for so long. Whereas these other guys, they've only been a couple hundred years, and it's a different thing. And I think that's why she was successfully able to do what she was able to do. But I mean, overall, this is a great book. I think that anybody who picks it up is going to enjoy it. Like I said, it flows very well. It
Well,
is very.
I would
Sorry, what was
only,
you
I
going to say?
would, I would only say that in the end, she pushes them away. Then Noriko comes and says, "They left you." Well, of course, if you push them away, they're going to leave. It's like, how do you rationalize someone saying, "Get the F out of here"? And it's like, they left you even though you told them off? Well, of course they're going to leave you. So that's what I say. That's the only thing I add. But keep going. It's a
No,
very enjoyable series.
yeah. So I'm just saying, go out there. 2 huge thumbs up. Go out there, buy it, enjoy it. It was really good. It's definitely worth the money for it. Okay.
Yep. Spinner rack.
Out. That was good. We're on the same thing.